I knew it was going to be super hard, and those decisions to like stick it out, keep this family together, know the Lord's promises, and that He will make this right was like sometimes like an hourly decision I had to make over and over and over again.
Hear him out. I barely know him.
Hello, and welcome to the Hear 'Em Out podcast.
I forgot we're filming. I was just like looking, and I was like, unprepared for filming. Unprepared.
I prepared them. Emma did not. A weekly conversation with my friends and I about how the Lord speaks to us and how He asks us to hear Him out. And so this week, I have Emma's parents on. The Bishops.
Parents?
Yeah.
Okay.
The first rents.
The first rents. Bobby, my mentor, was on, and she's a parent.
Okay.
To a 6-year-old, though. So, you bet it's a
Same
parent. Yeah. But this is the first couple I've had on the podcast.
Okay.
So, congrats.
Thanks.
Yeah.
It's fun to be on this side.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yes. Oh, actually, I'm here with my biggest fans. So, my biggest fans, the Bishops, I met them 2 weeks ago, and I think 2 weeks ago, Memorial Day.
Yeah.
2-ish weeks ago, yeah. And Emma was telling me, like, oh, yeah, my mom's listened to, like, all your episodes. Like, she loves it. I didn't know your dad also listened, because then I met you guys.
I haven't heard all of them. But
Okay, but still. And I feel like you were keeping, like, you were having conversations with me about, like, some of the things. You were like, oh, on that episode, that was,
Totally.
I was like, my biggest fans.
Totally.
So, and now you've met me, and now you're on the podcast.
I know,
Look
awesome.
at that. Isn't that amazing?
All I have to say is you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Thanks, Emma.
Your plug.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Yes. But anyway, so I asked the Bishops, Mr. and Mrs. Bishop, to be here today because I've gotten actually a lot of requests. Maybe not a lot. I've gotten a few requests for to have a couple who's been married for a long time on the podcast to ask questions about marriage.
We've been married a long time.
You have been married a long
Be
time.
28 years this November.
That's also my parents. We found out that my parents were married the day before you.
Yeah.
Yep. Same year.
hmm
Everything. So yeah.
Back
Crazy.
in the 90s.
Yep.
We were in the
No.
96, right?
96?
96. Yep. And so, yeah. So I want you guys to share. I mean, obviously you've heard the podcast, so you know my question. And so I do want you guys to share your testimony a little bit and kind of talk about that and everything. And then we'll kind of do a Q&A portion. And I have a lot of questions. People sent in a lot of questions. So mostly Brittany. I will be quite honest. Most of the questions are from Brittany.
Brittany is strong
So
in her question game.
yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
In anything we're doing.
Okay.
We'll be sitting there, there's like a lull in the conversation, and Brittany goes, so what is God teaching you right now?
Yeah. Or what do you think you would be if you were a fruit?
Or
anything.
if you could only ever wear one color for the rest of your life, what would it be?
We love Brittany. We love you, Brittany.
Brittany and I are going to be great
Yeah,
friends.
y'all
Yeah.
get along.
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
Julie's also been known, her nickname's the Inquisitor
Yes.
or the Interrogator.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Which I feel like
sometimes-
I'm also like that.
Sometimes we have to
I
kind of
just
calm her
wanna
down.
know.
Yes, me too.
I just wanna
I'm
know.
just curious.
Yeah, I wanna-
Like some people see it as nosy. I'm like, is it nosy? I just want to get to know you.
Yeah.
Sometimes I ask questions a little too far, and I'm like, okay, I'm sorry, but I just want to know.
over-
Yeah, I just want to know. So today might get a little spicy. We'll see.
that's okay.
We'll see.
That's
But you guys are the one who sent the child upstairs. So I mean, not child, but the
Young.
middle schooler upstairs, because
Yeah.
you were like,
Yeah.
the conversation might get a little crazy. So
No, that's true.
I never know. But anyway, okay. So let's start with the question at hand, and you guys can share your testimony a little bit.
Okay.
So when is a time in your life, specifically marriage, that you feel like the Lord has asked you to hear Him out about something? And
Why
so
don't you go first?
if you, pass the mic back and forth if you.
Jeez, I feel like it's actually been a lot.
'Kay.
It's not just one time.
Mhm.
Anytime you have a relationship with somebody for almost 30 years, and anytime you put two broken sinners together, there's an opportunity for conflict, and there's an opportunity for the enemy to get in there and try to drive a wedge.
Mhm.
And then you add in addiction and sin and hidden sin,
Mhm.
that's just ripe for not great things to happen.
Mhm.
And so, we were married, and unfortunately, I brought hidden sin into the marriage.
Mhm.
It wasn't long that it didn't pop up and rear its ugly head, and that was an ongoing battle, and it still is.
Mm-hmm.
But I think for me, it's my struggle, and if the place where I always have to hear God out is when He says, "Wait."
Mm-hmm.
When the answer is not yes or no, or right now, it's wait,
Mhm.
or I'm not going to take you out of these circumstances that you're in. I don't ever think of Him as saying, you need to learn this. I see it more as of like, I've put you there for a reason.
Yeah. I'm not going to just pull you out of the valley. I'm going to walk through you with
Yeah.
it.
And
Yeah.
you hear the cliches, oh, well, the fruit grows in the valleys. Well, when
It
you're
does.
when you're in the dark part of the valley,
Yeah.
that's
hard to
Not as much.
it's hard to see and hear, and sometimes it's hard to know that that's going to happen. But
Mhm.
I had this revelation sort of this year around Easter of, the apostles didn't know Sunday was coming.
Mm.
Friday happened, and
Mm-hmm.
they thought that was it.
Yeah.
And we have this luxury and this gift of knowing
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
And as I've been dealing with some health issues that I want fixed, and I want them fixed right now,
Mm-hmm.
I have to wait, and I have to be patient. And so, I honestly, I think for me, there's tons of times, but it's really specifically in that, when I want the circumstances or when I
Mhm.
want the consequences of my sin
Mm-hmm.
to be gone, God's like, hear me out. Wait, you
Mhm.
need to go through this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always come out better for it.
Mm-hmm.
I need to trust Him
Mm-hmm.
always, all things. And that's hard. It's hard when you're down in the bottom of the pit or
Yep.
down in the bottom of the valley and you can't see how high up it is or anything
Mhm.
like that.
Yeah.
So you're going to share your story a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I was exposed to pornography
Mm.
at a very young age, and it
Mhm.
was never that big of a deal. It was never, we grew up going to church, but I never had any kind of relationship with Jesus. It wasn't talked about really at home. We went on Sundays, and that was it.
Mm-hmm.
And that carried all through adolescence, high school, college. Ended up in the military, ended up getting married, and never talked about that.
And still had it, and so it's like, yeah,
never
still suffered
said, hey,
struggle.
this is what
Yeah.
I struggle with, anything like that, and just
Mhm.
brought into the marriage and thought, oh, well, I'm going to get married and it'll cure that.
Yeah.
Mm.
And I hear so many young men say that or
Mhm.
think that, and I'm here to tell you,
And women.
and women,
And
And women.
Yeah.
it doesn't.
Yep. No. It makes it bigger.
Any hidden sin that you bring into the marriage
Uh-huh.
is going to be really, really hard.
Mm-hmm.
On the one hand, you're not being fully known to the one person that you're supposed to be fully
Mhm.
known to. There's a Tim Keller quote, and I'm going to mangle it, but we all want to be fully known and fully loved.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really scary because people are people and they're not God.
Mm-hmm.
God fully knows us. God fully loves us.
Mm-hmm.
And, to set the foundation of a marriage on open, honest transparency
Mm-hmm.
is the only way to do it.
Yeah.
Because as we know, the light's going to get shined on it. It's going to come out.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it comes out, and it
Yeah.
came out. So back in 2014, it came out,
Mm.
and that started a very long journey of dealing with that and really trying to trust God. And I have vivid memories of being in the guest room in our house because
Mm.
that's where I was living at the time.
Down in the basement with
In the
Emma.
basement with Emma.
Shared a bathroom, I heard.
I called it the dungeon
Mhm.
because that's
What it felt like.
spiritually where I
Mhm.
felt like. And I can remember holding onto this Bible and telling God, I can't do this.
Mm.
I'm not strong enough. I've tried. I can't do it.
Mm.
And just fair warning, I'm a crier. I'm like a major weeper.
Bring it on. Hey, first time somebody's
Major-
cried on the podcast.
Major
Well,
weeper.
We've talked about it.
First time?
I think so. We've talked about it. There was somebody's episode recently where they were thinking about crying. Or they were
I
like,
don't think about it. I just do it.
we like talked about
No.
them crying, but then they never did.
I don't think about it.
Oh,
I
I
just
think
do
it was John. I think it was John Luke's episode. He
Yeah.
almost
Okay.
cried.
I listen.
maybe.
I
Or
totally
Andres.
listen to John Luke's.
I think it was John Luke. He said he almost cried. Anyway,
Yeah. And so
John Luke, he loves you. Biggest fan.
yeah, and so that started a journey of trying to really trust God and have a relationship with Jesus, and trying to make that the central part of my life. And I'm still working on it. It's an everyday thing that I have to work on. But it is so much better on this side of that than the other side. And I often now think to myself, I don't know how you can even get through the day without Jesus. Because, you know, like we said, we know what the end of the story is.
Right.
We know Sunday. And to live without that hope, I don't know how that works. So, but in that, it's been a lot of work. Being married is the hardest relationship you will ever have. It's the best human relationship that you can ever have. But it takes work every single day. And the second you start coasting, the enemy just slides right in there. And before you know it, 6 months has gone by and you realize, wow, we're not in a great place right now. And the amount of work that it takes to kind of get back there versus that daily occurrence. You know, I'm always fascinated by professional athletes that do these incredible workouts every single day. And I watch them and I hear some of them go, I don't like doing this. I don't want to be doing this. But I know the results. And if I do this, I know what's going to happen. And so the enemy will lie and say, no, you're okay. You don't have to do that. You don't need to put the work in. You know, well, just watch your TV show versus turn the TV off and spending time with my wife and figuring out what she's worried about right now. What's eating her lunch right now? What can I do as the leader, but as her husband, to love and help her and to point her back towards Christ? A lot of people and a lot of pop culture will tell you the purpose of marriage is happiness. It's not. The purpose of marriage is holy. And it's to, number one, me be an example of Christ to my wife, but to also point her and help her to become more Christ-like. We've had the privilege of counseling couples, of leading Merge, Foundation Group, Reengage, and we wish we would have had something like Merge before we got married. I mean, it's like, you know, and I think one of the ways that my wife always reminds me of how to lead is to lead through humility. And
that's huge.
I say, don't do what I did because we've screwed it up a lot. And by the grace of God, we're still married. But we've also said that divorce is not an option. It's a covenant relationship. Genesis, very beginning of Genesis talks about marriage. You will become one flesh.
We literally just talked about this in church yesterday.
Genesis 2?
We just talked about marriage yesterday.
We were in, it was Ephesians 5 and then going back
5,
because the original is in Genesis 2.
The very first marriage ceremony is in Genesis.
Because they quote
and
Genesis
it's
2.
and they go back and quote it, and it's that you will become one flesh. Well, unless you're chopping parts of yourself off, you kind of can't do anything with that. And so, you know, we used to always use this visualization of a room of all these doors, and all those doors were ways out of your marriage.
It's gonna hit me.
No. But all these doors were ways out of your marriage, and the first thing you had to do was close every single one of those doors, lock it, board it up, brick it up. It's not an option. And there is a sense of kind of security in that of, you know, the other day, I mean, we're working through a rough spot right now in our marriage. And the other day, Julie said, we're going to get through this. It might not be easy. It might take a while to work our way through it, but we're going to get through it and we're going to work our way through it. And that sense of kind of security and peace is really helpful for me. I'm the child of divorce. I'm, 53 years old and it still affects me to this day. And that happened 30 odd years ago or longer than that now.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. I forget how old I am.
Probably about
sometimes.
40 years ago.
COVID. I blame it on COVID.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
The black
Last
hole of
20 years
COVID,
with COVID. It's just,
Yeah. So I think that's, it's hard. Life's hard. And then you throw in having somebody who's not perfect, who's
Mhm.
going to disappoint you,
No way.
who's,
You are. You're perfect. You're
who's going to
not.
let you down, who's going to hurt you.
Yeah.
And, I think if I was going to boil down being married into like one nugget, it's you better learn how to forgive
Mm-hmm.
again
That's good.
and again
Yeah.
and again.
Every day,
Amen.
unless you're perfect.
Yeah. Like her. Yeah.
As Mary Poppins
Yes.
would say, practically perfect in every way.
Yeah. Do you want to share a little bit about your side of things? Also, if you want to share briefly how y'all met, got married, all that fun stuff.
You wanna share that?
You can do that.
Jeff and I met.
I'll fact check her. Seriously.
I'll do a very, very quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
We
Because we got lots
met
of questions to get through.
after he had enlisted in the Air Force and he needed a job for a very short period of time. And I worked at that job. So I was a cocktail waitress at Dave & Buster's in Houston. Shout out.
Shout out. Shout out. Shout out, David Buster.
And
H-Town, right? Is that what you said?
I don't know. I'm not from here.
and he was working there.
Huh?
He was like security, which is funny. And so we
I was
met.
really skinny back then.
Yeah.
Like really.
I mean, like, yeah.
Like,
Anyway, and so we met and became really fast friends. And then he left to go to the Air Force.
and
And
I'd just come out of a 4-year relationship that I thought we were going to get married.
Yeah.
And when I announced that I decided to enlist in the
Right.
Air Force, the relationship ended really fast.
That's sad.
And it,
I mean, in the long, in the
long
grand
run,
scheme of
it's
things,
great,
not,
but-
it's,
and it was it was an inappropriate relationship. We were
Mhm.
doing things we shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah.
We weren't married.
You were kissing?
Uh,
No, I'm just kidding.
Sure.
Just kidding.
but
they were waffling.
so at this point, I'm not looking for a relationship.
Mhm.
I'm getting ready to go in the military.
Yeah.
And I didn't even know if I was going to be in for 20 years or 4 or what. And so, fast forward and we meet and we hit it off. We
Mhm.
became friends.
Just friends, though.
Just friends.
Just friends.
And then he left. What did you say?
Just hearing my dad say we hit it off it just makes me giggle.
That's fair.
This
That's
is one
what
of the benefits of adult children.
Yes.
it's the best.
Yeah.
It's my favorite age. So he left and then he started writing me letters.
This is pre-cell phones.
Yeah. And so, I mean,
My parents did a lot of letters too, because
Yeah.
my parents were dating
Yeah.
same time. which
same
is-
time.
Same timeline.
And we
My
cross
dad went to
country.
Africa.
I mean, they're like
Yeah.
across the globe.
Yep.
We were
and
just cross country.
actually still have the letters.
I think my parents do too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I was not in a great situation. That's like too long to talk about tonight, but I was not in a great situation. So
Mhm.
he started writing letters, and that was in January of 96. He proposed April of 96.
You guys were friends until he went to the Air Force.
Yes.
And then you started sending letters.
We had started
We
getting
had-
romantic before I left.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, again.
Romantic.
We got romantic before we left.
We had an inappropriate relationship.
Oh,
Yes.
I didn't know that.
cover your ears. Ah!
Emma,
I
we've had sex
stop. You have
3 times. Yeah, I know, it's crazy. Okay, so
It's gonna get real spicy on this episode.
yeah, just one of the yes, we have 2
That's
children.
so
So he proposed in April. I'm going to fast forward, you guys.
Sorry.
He's going to propose in April. We got married in November,
Mhm.
and then 6 days later, I moved from Houston, Texas, to Spokane, Washington, to be a wife.
Wow.
So
My brother's
mean,
in Spokane
With
right
a
now.
rear-wheel
yeah.
drive car and a cat.
Well, not currently. He's at home for the summer, but he goes to school in Spokane.
at Gonzaga.
No,
WashU?
Moody.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
have like the aviation.
Yeah. Awesome.
Anyway, sorry.
Spokane's
Beside the
fun.
point.
Anyway,
Sorry. Beside the point.
Airplane?
Beside the
yeah.
point.
Oh my gosh.
Is he
Yeah.
Bryson?
There's a lot of airplanes in this house.
I did notice that. Anyway, continue.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So anyway, that's kind of like how we met when we got married. And
Mhm.
so I would say that like Jeff, there's so many times that I've had to hear him out through marriage specifically. But
Mhm.
the biggest one would be when Jeff's sin was exposed in a really big way.
Mhm.
It kind of took about 2 weeks. It was like little confession, little confession, little confession. And one night, the big confession came out, like kind of the final straw. And I was sitting on the patio.
Which was right above the window of my room.
Yes. And I would say, and Emma can fact check this, but we didn't you weren't raised in a house that was like loud and screaming and slamming doors. And like, that was just not.
In fact, you would lose your door if you slammed it.
I was threatened many a time that my door would be taken off the hinges.
Sister actually got her door taken away.
Just once.
She did.
But anyway, so that wasn't an environment that we were in. So I screamed, slammed the door, threw a wine glass across.
It was a Diet Coke bottle.
Oh, it was a Diet Coke bottle across the yard, and came in, and I said a cuss word, which is not something that we didn't cuss.
Did you say frick?
I did.
Oh, no.
I said, "Get the frick out."
Actually.
There was more fricks.
Yeah, I said a few fricks. And so,
years.
and
and they heard her and Allison, her sister, heard everything.
So they probably were like,
what
the frick?
What the frick is going on?
Yeah.
Right. And so
I'll bleep all of these out.
In that moment, the girls grew up in an environment where dad left unexpectedly
all the time.
Mhm.
I mean, he was deployed all the time. And a lot of the time, it was just me and the girls. I felt like a single mom most of the time, which when you piece back what was happening behind the scenes, it makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Things that were starting to click. But anyway, what happened was, as soon as Jeff turned around, started packing a bag, I don't remember, and you might remember this, Emma, but Emma and Allie kind of came in. Was it you? Was it Allie? But Dad said, "I've done something wrong. I've hurt your mom, and I'm leaving."
Yeah. I don't remember the "I hurt your mom" part. I just remember, granted, I was in what, 7th grade?
Yeah, 7th grade.
7th grade. And so I just remember hearing it from you being like, Dad did something, he has to go. But I think the main confusion for me, and I feel like I can speak for Allie on this, if not, she'll call me out on it later for sure.
For sure.
Was that this was like the spring, and he had just come back from a 7-month deployment, 6 months.
It was a long one. It wasn't that long.
But a long time. It was
a long time.
It was like 6 months. But yeah, he had just come back.
And normally, like, you had gone on deployments like back to back.
Yeah.
But it was like,
you're right.
It was like weeks
You had just got
after
back from
you had
Kazakhstan.
just gotten back.
Yeah.
And so Allie and I both were like,
What?
He just got back. Where is he
Why is he
going? Why is he leaving?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So in that moment, my anger, and I don't typically go to anger, I go to sadness and grief. And so the anger was like, huh?
So true.
So true. And so the anger was boiling up so much that I was just seeing red.
I'd never seen her that angry before.
I mean,
It honestly kind of scared me.
It should have.
Well, yes.
Good. As it should.
Absolutely, 100%.
Yeah.
And so I think that it was just so outside
Out of
of
character for
anything of character for her. Anything. I mean, my parents were divorced. I still remember them telling me, but my parents would fight, scream, slam doors. So that was kind of, me and my brother were used to that. So, but to get that from her, she's one of the least angry people out there. Again, that's not where
a whole new
she is.
Yeah.
And so that was scary for me.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole thing was scary, but that was really something. And then,
Go ahead.
no, you sorry.
I'm trying to fast forward
You
through
gave
my
me the
hair.
eye,
We like to tell stories in this family. So
I know.
I immediately, and you guys have to know that we were not following Christ.
Yeah.
we were not plugged in. We didn't have community.
Complete isolation,
Good friends.
And I definitely had always had more faith habits than Jeff. But we were not abiding at all.
No strong relationships with the Lord.
No.
You weren't like spiritually leading or anything.
No,
Yeah.
in fact, I mean, part of my testimony is that I was a leader in the military and was, I mean, awarded and rewarded and promoted for that. And I abdicated the most important leadership, which was in the house.
Mm.
I would come home and I wanted me time because I had a rough day at work.
Mm.
And it fell on Julie's shoulders because I was gone. And then when I'd come home, I wasn't mentally there.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was
He was a
hiding.
porn addict.
I was hiding addiction.
Yeah.
I was working at hiding that and living this double life.
Yeah.
And so, no, I mean, we fortunately, Julie had some very God honoring women in her life
Yeah.
that just circled up and grabbed a hold of her.
Yeah.
So the hear him out thing happened that night because about the same time that I heard Jeff's car pull out of the driveway, it was like, I've got bigger things to deal with. And the Holy Spirit was so loud in my head. And I'm going to cry because I just looked at Emma. And the Lord was saying, whatever you do, that is their dad.
Mm.
And you have to honor that relationship.
Oh, wow.
And so it was just more like, okay, I cannot be a bad mouthing person. And then the next time I really felt the Lord say, hear me out, is when I realized, and I probably should have, I don't have a scripture reference.
That's okay.
Emma can look it up. But when I
you're a fact checker over here.
truly believed and understood that Jeff's sin of infidelity and porn addiction, because it did lead to lots of different types of infidelity, that sin was the same in God's eyes to my people pleasing and comparison and all of those sin ditches that I still struggle with. When I realized that, it was the Lord saying, like, you made a covenant relationship, and even though you're not following me and abiding in me now, that's still what I'm asking you to do.
Like, hear me out. You're both sinners.
Yeah, absolutely.
So forgive him and work it out.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's not easy, and
Yeah.
it's still something we struggle with. And
Mhm.
Jeff's had some relapses in his sobriety in that over the years, and it's just a constant, like, okay, but who am I,
Mm.
and who does the Lord say I am,
Mhm.
and I do have to continually to forgive, and so making that decision, and we went against even people in our own family
Our
telling
families
us to
told
get
us
divorced.
Mm.
That sin was just not even knowing the whole story, but
It's
just too big.
It's too hard.
It's too big,
It's
too hard.
Just move
Yeah.
on.
You'll never be able to trust him. And I mean, it's funny, not funny because the Lord's timing, but I mean, we're not in a great spot right now, and we were having hard conversations, but building trust back is something that is a constant struggle in marriage,
Mm.
at least for us. And I think probably, I won't say every single couple we've gotten to know on an emotional intimacy level. It's just something that it's a constant battle.
Yeah.
It's just a constant battle.
Well, 'cause
and you can't just leave.
It's a battleground because we were literally talking about this yesterday at church. Like, Satan hates marriage.
yeah,
Yes.
And so he will do everything possible. So yeah, it's a battleground every day.
Yeah.
Like it's gonna suck. Like it's gonna be hard. It's not gonna be easy. It's not gonna be smooth sailing because Satan's attacking you, especially you guys. Like especially, and I don't know you guys very well, but everything I've learned about you guys and through Emma, through meeting you, you know, it's like you guys are so on fire for Jesus, and you guys are so passionate about helping couples like thrive in their marriage.
Yeah.
And of course Satan hates you guys because you like, and of course, like you're going to keep getting arrows thrown at you because it's like, you guys are actually doing something. We literally talked about this on the podcast yesterday that I recorded with some of my other friends, but just talking about how like we're attacked by the enemy because like we're dangerous to the enemy, you know? And it's like, if you're not getting attacked, that means you're not doing anything.
Yeah.
And that means you're not really on the right path.
I mean, in the military,
yeah.
I was in the military for 20 years.
Yeah.
We only went after the bad guys. The
Mhm.
guys sitting over on the sideline were like, shh, don't
Yeah.
tell them we're coming, and, you know, kind
Yeah.
of thing. But,
And
so I think that's, you know, the harder you run after Jesus,
Mhm.
the harder Satan's going to come at you.
Yep.
And we always tell couples that are like getting ready to lead in a group, like, get ready.
Yeah.
He's
Get your shields up.
you just put
Yeah.
a target on your back.
Yeah.
Full armor.
The
Yeah.
full armor
Yeah.
of God. And I think that that's something even that I've struggled with of getting out of the military
Mhm.
of, I wouldn't dare go into a combat situation without wearing my body armor.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
Yeah.
Yet I'll sit here and think about it and just go off on my day without putting on the armor of God. Again, that's dumb. Like it's just dumb.
Mhm.
And so I
Stupid.
think that through all of that and we told the girls what was going on.
Yeah.
Age appropriately.
Mhm.
They knew what was going on.
Mhm.
And
Not that night.
not that night.
Yeah.
I was like,
But a little, so this was October, and in December, Julie had already had scheduled some pretty major surgery,
Mhm.
and she didn't want me to take care of her.
Mhm.
And so our sister-in-law came up, but the night that she came from the hospital, that person over there blew up.
That's what I heard.
All-
I'm in CG with her. I've heard
Yeah.
her testimony.
So,
So I've heard it all.
and she stood there and let me have it for probably a good 15 minutes.
That is what I heard.
It's so funny because in my brain, I only remember saying one thing and then leaving.
Oh, in that moment.
In that moment, I was seeing red. I blacked out.
You did.
I remember going downstairs. You said goodnight. I didn't respond. I said goodnight, Emma Elizabeth.
What's her middle name?
Pulled out the middle name. And
Middle name.
E.
I turned around and said, I'm not saying goodnight to you. And I went back downstairs.
There's a little.
That's all she's told me.
Yeah,
At least
there's-
if you're a memory, there's
in my memory, there's a little bit more to it, and it was all the truth.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it was.
You spoke some truth. You launched some truth
I
bombs
don't think
at
there
him.
were. I don't remember
Yeah.
cursing, but you were.
Yeah.
How could you do this to my mother? How you said you loved her. You say you love us. How could you do this? And
Truth
We've
bomb.
shared more
yes,
of the facts
Yeah.
the older
Yeah.
you guys have
Yeah.
gotten.
yes.
Like,
Yeah.
And so I stood there and I took it. And to backtrack a little bit, that night Julie kicked me out of the house.
Mm.
About 11 o'clock, she said I could come back and I could be in the guest room in the basement. And,
because I knew he was going to go commit suicide.
Was that true?
oh yeah, I was driving around without my seatbelt on. And Julie called a friend of mine in the Air Force. He called me and met me at a
didn't know that.
restaurant.
Well, I didn't know that, obviously.
Right.
But
I feel like, yeah, I'm
And-
sure like,
whoa.
And met
that's
me
the only reason.
met me at a
Wow.
restaurant with a couple other friends, one of which I knew through the military, but he basically had the exact same story. He's mine.
Mm.
And I never
Just a porn addiction.
never knew?
never knew that because I was alone. I was
Mhm.
nobody
You isolated. Yeah.
nobody has this. I'm
Mhm.
the only one that struggles with this.
Mhm. That's how Satan gets you.
Yeah.
You're alone. It's only you.
And
Yeah,
so,
only you.
but anyway, so I'm living. So she didn't talk to me for 6 months,
Mm.
and we lived literally next to each other in the room, shared a bathroom, and Emma did not say a word to me. Even going through family counseling together, she wouldn't say anything to me.
I forgot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And
She
that-
said it's about a solid 6 months she didn't talk to you. Yeah.
that
she told us
was
Yeah.
that was really difficult.
Yeah.
Mm.
But it's another way just that I had to hear I had to hear him out.
Yeah.
Because I knew it was going to be super hard, and those decisions to like stick it out, keep this family together, know the Lord's promises and that he will make this right
Mhm.
was like sometimes like an hourly decision
Mhm.
I had to make
Yeah.
over and over and over again.
And just that obedience and listening to the Lord and saying, okay, I'll, like as hard as it is, I'll obey. Like
Yeah.
one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
I will obey minute by minute, hour by hour.
Yeah.
And again, the more you obey and the closer you walk towards what the Lord wants for you and
Mhm.
has for you,
Yeah.
the more the darts and arrows are going to just fling at you from
Yes.
the enemy.
Yes.
Because it's like good was coming, change was coming.
It was.
You know, a God story and miracle of saving your marriage was coming, and Satan didn't want that to happen.
Yeah.
And so he was like, let me do everything possible.
Yeah. And I'm
Yeah.
so thankful that I already had the Holy Spirit in me.
Mhm.
I had already believed, but I just wasn't living it out,
Mhm.
but it was still there.
Yeah.
it had been there for a long time, and it would bubble out here and there. But thank
Yeah.
goodness that I already had that going on,
Yeah.
because there's no way I would have even heard the Holy Spirit
Yeah.
in these moments.
Well, and I think we both had the foundation of going to church and hearing the gospel,
Mhm.
and so it was there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We weren't living it out. We weren't walking daily with it, but I can't imagine what it would have been like if we didn't have that.
No, I would have divorced you.
Yeah, we wouldn't be sitting here
Yeah.
right now. And so, I'm super thankful for that. And it's something I always remember when I'm sharing the gospel with somebody, that luckily it's not my job if they believe that or not. That's the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
And, yeah, I mean, many, many times of wait, and you're where you need to be right now. And I think that's what he said a lot to me.
I am teaching.
Yeah, there are things going on.
Mhm.
I remember having a phone conversation with her, like, are you ever going to forgive me? And she said, I haven't left.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's where we were. And so funny, not funny, of God moving, we go from that in October to probably the beginning of March of the next year, and we bought a house.
And you moved.
This house.
This house that
Yeah.
we're
And
sitting
you
in
moved
right
to
now.
you moved to McKinney.
And Julie kept saying, if this is not supposed to be what you want, God, close the door.
Yeah.
And he opened so
He said,
many
"What was that?
doors.
Open the door? Okay.
And like we closed on a house in 30 days.
Just
wow.
I mean, crazy.
Wow.
Just
Yeah.
literally
I
back
don't know
thinking
much
of
about
it
the housing
now,
market, but
that
No, that's
it
good.
was
Yeah.
God speaking and
Yeah.
saying,
Yeah.
here,
Absolutely.
this is the path.
hear me out.
This is
Yeah.
the path. And,
Yeah.
I remember having a conversation with one of my commanders, because I decided it was time to retire, and I'd known her for 20 years, and I went in to tell her, and she got mad, and I closed the door and I told her the whole story, and she said, you're doing exactly what you need to do.
Good. Yeah.
So
Yeah. That's awesome. And then once you moved back, or once you moved to here, then you guys got plugged in at Watermark Plano,
Yeah.
aka now City Bridge.
but before that happened, Julie and the girls moved down here 6 months before I did.
Oh, I don't think I knew that.
I was living in a little teeny tiny apartment during the week, but every single weekend on Friday, and my boss, he knew what our situation was. Usually about noon, he'd be like, hey, I'll see you on Monday.
Yeah.
And I would get in my car and I would drive 6 hours down here, and I did that for 6 months.
and then
I
drive
Wow.
back on Sunday.
never missed a weekend.
Wow.
Because that was part of me showing her, hey, you can
Showing
trust
up.
me.
Yep.
I'm going to be here. I'm going to
Yep.
come down. And there was a couple weekends even where she's like, well, it's okay. And I'm like, no, it's not okay.
Yeah.
I'm coming. I will be there.
Yeah.
Man, that's
And-
So
awesome.
we immediately got plugged into Watermark Plano, and
It was that first Sunday we were here,
Mhm.
and we'd been to Watermark
Yeah.
because her brother's here. And so she had this very short list.
Mhm.
And we went to Watermark Plano, and JP, shout out to
Shout
JP,
out.
shout out down at Harris Creek. I don't even remember what he was talking about, but I remember walking out and looking at her and going, this
This
is
is
where
it.
we need to be.
and then we started dragging them and Allie to student ministries,
Yes, I've heard about
whether
that too.
they wanted to or not.
Yep.
Yeah.
She did not want to. I've heard that.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yep. I know it all. But
I know.
the listeners don't.
The listeners
so
don't.
yeah.
Maybe I'll get a second episode.
Season 2. It's season 2. So I don't know. Season 2, I just bring everybody back. Round 2. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm running out of people, so
I'll come back.
anyway. Yeah, that's awesome. And then that's kind of what sparked, I guess not sparked, but that's kind of what really jump started and kick started your healing in the marriage, would you say?
Yeah.
Was joining
the
that
desire
church.
to serve
Yeah.
in the marriages. We at the time you had to give your testimony to a member of
Right.
the church.
We still have to do that, I think.
I was saying you have things you want to say.
Yeah.
But
I just know.
very quickly we talked to him and
Submit.
gave him our
Okay.
story, and he said, hey, that's great, we're starting to re-engage
Mhm.
in a month. Would you guys be willing to share your testimony?
Yeah.
And we talked about it. Julie's like, no, I think we should go through it first before we do that.
Smart, probably.
Which we
Yeah.
did, and we waited 16 weeks to get into a closed group. A long
Wow.
time.
These listeners aren't.
Yeah, anyways, but it was a long time,
We're not even married.
but went through it and then
True.
turned
Probably
around
most
and
of them.
led in that really kind of ignited our passion
Mm.
for marriage and
Yeah.
for helping people.
Mhm.
And, you
I
know,
mean, his story in our marriage is worth sharing.
Yes.
And celebrating.
I think I am just such a big. I mean, okay, my parents' story. I won't go into all the details and stuff because I'm allowed to share. But
you don't have to.
it's fine. I have the platform. I'm allowed to share whatever I want to share, but it's fine. No, but my parents have a very similar story as well, and like. So I've always grown up, same thing, just always grown up hearing it. My older brother, he has histories with a porn addiction as well. He's literally talked to his entire college about it.
Yeah.
Like
So
I can share that. I'm allowed to share that one. And so like I've grown up hearing all about like porn addictions. It's just like that's all I've, grown up hearing. And so like it's just very heavily talked about.
Yeah.
And it's just like I didn't hear it in a church very often, in
Yeah.
a church setting. And
Yeah.
it's like now that I'm older, I'm hearing it way more.
Yeah.
Like TA will talk about it,
Yeah.
or
yeah.
JP will talk about, like
think-
all these
Yeah.
bigger pastors I feel like are
C
talking
Church is
about it
starting
more.
to talk more about
The Big C Church is starting to
Mhm.
more, but growing up, I really didn't hear it very often. Besides my
never-
family,
I'd never heard about it.
yeah,
Yeah.
only
Ever.
my family, and even then, it was like I could tell that there was shame with it. You
Oh,
know what I mean? And
absolutely.
it was like because people don't talk about this.
Yeah, no.
And so my dad and my brother, very, very strong advocates for talking about it and being open about it and just being very obviously against it,
Yeah.
and just like sharing their stories
Yeah.
because it's just so important because it's like you're not alone,
Mhm.
and it's just like if you don't talk about it, even with girls, like girls don't talk about it either. And I'm
Yeah.
like, there's girls out there struggling with
Oh,
it.
yeah.
We're just not talking
I've
about
worked
it.
very closely with several.
Yes, and it's just like more so girls don't talk about it than guys, and it's just like, but the more we talk about it, the more we realize, oh, we're not alone.
No.
Like,
Well,
oh,
and it's
like,
still it's one of those unacceptable sins.
yeah,
I mean, it's almost easier to talk about drug addiction
Yeah.
than pornography.
yeah,
Yeah.
or food addiction or whatever. Yeah,
Just more
Yeah.
acceptable. I mean, I think that there's a reason why God talks a lot about sexual sin.
mm-hmm.
And that is so true on so many different levels, but it's not worse. And I also think, y'all are growing up and becoming adults in such a crazy society where, you can get porn anywhere. You can get it
Anywhere.
on Pinterest. You can
Yeah.
get it anywhere. And
Mhm.
it's just all in your face so easily. One of the things that took Jeff's sin like really down the dark path is when we had a home computer.
Mm.
We didn't have a home computer our first
Mhm.
few years of marriage. That isn't something, we didn't have these phones that you could get it just anywhere.
Mhm.
And so, the temptation
Mhm.
for anybody right now is just
Yep.
huge. And it's
Yeah.
also celebrated in so many,
Yep.
we
It's-
know, believe
Go on to Netflix, and every single thing on
Yes.
Netflix right now
Yes.
is gonna have a sex scene.
and I will just
Yeah.
tell you guys, like, I know professing, believing couples that use porn in the bedroom. And I cannot stress enough to you guys. I know.
Hold on, I'm gonna need like 5 minutes for that one.
Yeah.
What?
It's
Yeah.
awful. But
Don't do that.
no,
Sorry.
do not do that. But I think it's that letting the enemy have a little bit of a foothold, and
It's a big foothold.
yeah,
That's like a whole mountain.
it
There
is
you go.
just
Have at it.
so
how close are
unhealthy.
you willing to walk to the edge of the cliff?
Yeah.
They're practically jumping off the cliff. Yeah, like
Yeah.
that's in, yeah.
Yeah. But just to know that that's out there,
Yeah.
and you can be fed
Yep.
some really poor wisdom, and people can take scripture out of context and use it for whatever they want.
Mhm.
So, guard your hearts, guard your eyes, guard your ears, all of those things, and don't let the enemy get a foothold on that, because, it almost destroyed this family.
Mhm.
And
Porn kills love.
yeah,
Mhm.
porn kills relationships.
Mhm.
Porn kills love.
Even like,
It's not God's design.
and even like with outside of the context of like marriage and stuff too, because even like, it didn't really ruin me and my dad's relationship because I was pretty young, and also family issues that I was more so on my dad's side about everything. But I didn't ignore him for 6 months like
Yeah.
you did. But even like
Go Emma, go Emma.
but even like my older brother, and just like the like tension of just
Mhm.
like knowing, and it's just like I'm a girl, and just like that like uncomfortableness
Yeah.
for a little bit of just like, is he thinking you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Just like,
or
what, like
my friends.
what my
or-
friends,
yes,
yeah.
I
And it's
mean,
just like, ooh, like I like for a while I was like, ain't none of my friends going anywhere near my brother.
Yeah.
Still kind of say that, but he's fine now. But it's so,
for different
other
reasons,
different
probably
reasons,
now.
completely different
Totally
reasons. Just if you talk to him, you'll understand. Anyway,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's just like like it would ruin those relationships too. And then
Yeah.
even same with my dad. It's just like sometimes thinking of like, oh my gosh, like it's like, you know, just like thinking, knowing, okay, that's what, you know, or like any other, like even guy friends or whatever, and
Yeah.
just thinking like knowing the majority of guys struggle with this.
Yes.
And it's just like, I don't know, it's just how much it's tainted everything.
Yes.
And even like, sorry, just got on a little tangent.
No, it's fine.
But,
I think one of the things with that is that there is so much that, I mean, God created sex,
Mm-hmm,
and it's a beautiful thing.
mm-hmm,
The story I hear, the analogy is,
mm-hmm.
you know, a fire in your fireplace is a wonderful thing.
Yep.
You put it in the middle of your living
Mhm.
room,
Not so great.
not so great.
Yeah.
And so there's so much incredible beauty in things that
Mhm.
God created,
Mhm.
and the enemy gets in there and perverts it
Mhm.
and uses it not the way it's designed to
Mhm.
use it. And you know, I like to shoot guns,
Mhm.
and I respect them, and I use them in the correct way.
Mhm.
They're fine. But if
Right.
I don't, it can hurt people.
Mhm. Yeah.
And the enemy is going to tell you, "Oh no, it's okay.
Mhm.
No, it's okay. It's all
Yeah.
right." You know, I mean, it started at the very beginning.
Mhm.
Did God really say that?
Right.
Mhm.
Is that really what He said? And so, the more that we can ground ourselves in the Word and in the truth,
Mhm.
and I'm sorry, but I'm one of those people that think there are absolute truths.
Yeah.
And it's what God says they are.
Mhm.
And the more that we do that and put on that full armor of God,
Mhm.
the easier it is to beat that stupid snake
Mhm.
off.
Yep. Yeah.
Julie hates snakes.
Yeah. And I think like it, yeah, it's just everything you said, agreed. And just like the way, yeah, just the way that porn in general has just like ruined society. And even just like, this is something I've loosely talked to some of my guy friends about, but like even just having conversations with them about girls and stuff. I'm one of those girls that like all the guys will come to me for girl advice, you know, and I love it. So I eat it up.
Well, you had brothers.
Exactly. I have brothers and I miss them. And usually my brothers don't really, actually, it's funny. My brother texted today in our family group chat and was like, there's gonna be a second date. And I was like, there was a first? I was like, why am I just hearing about this now? And he was like, you don't ask. I was like, you're far away. Anyway.
You're supposed to tell
But then if
me.
I ask him, he's like, stop asking me about girls. I'm like,
Mm,
anyway.
can't wait.
But I love that. And so like I love being like the sister, like sister status. But like I've had conversations with them before because honestly, and it's something that's frustrated me. And I don't know, as a guy's perspective, older, you know, you can not old, just older.
Older.
Wise.
It's okay.
Wise. Just like from a young woman's perspective, like how much, like how heartbreaking it is that I feel like a lot of guys have extremely high standards for what they want in a woman,
Mhm.
especially looks wise. And yes, I understand
Unrealistic.
yes, extremely unrealistic standards for what a woman's gonna look like, or you know, and it's like and it's just like not even just in necessarily like a sexual context or whatever,
Yeah,
but it's
no.
just like guys will completely look past girls because they're just like, well, she's not pretty enough.
Mhm.
And it's like there are plenty of girls in our friend group. Oh, I've talked to the boys about this. Let me tell you. Anyway, but just like I'm like, you know, why not try like
Yeah.
this girl would be great with you. Like,
Yeah.
why not? Well, I'm just not
I mean, I
really
think
into,
that
you know, and it's like,
unfortunately is a
yeah,
it's a product of society,
Yeah.
right? Like
Yeah.
we sexualize people's bodies and
mhm,
Food. We sexualize. I love to cook.
mhm.
And I hear people talk about that food sexy.
Yeah.
That's
Mm-mm.
so crazy.
Mm-mm.
Wait,
Cringe.
is chuggy or
Chuggy?
cringe?
Uh-oh.
Cringe.
we're
Skibbity.
we're
What's
embarrassing
skibbity?
Emma now.
Hey, pull back on the road.
Yeah.
I don't know. Evidently
Back
it's
on
a
your
sixth.
flight path.
It's a sixth grade.
Whatever you gotta do.
It's
Yeah.
a sixth grade slang word.
I'll
Yeah,
ask
I mean,
Andrew. No, which one's in sixth grade?
Margo.
Margo.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think that society is teaching you guys that you should be finding someone who looks a certain way or has a certain profession
Makes a certain amount of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and unfortunately, what we need to be doing is finding people that are chasing hard after Jesus and are going to be a partner
Mm-hmm.
for the rest of your life.
Because looks
In a
fade.
covenant
Beauty is fleeting.
Yeah, and
You know?
guess what? Nobody's body looks like the way it does now when you're
Mm-mm.
50 years old.
Nope.
It just doesn't.
Even the people you see in the movies, that's not how they really look.
Yeah.
We have body doubles and stunt doubles and
Mhm.
Spanx.
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway, yeah, we could go on a whole
Yeah.
girl dad
Oh my
trying to
God.
drop the
Girl-
he knows
girl
what
dad.
Spanx are.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I mean, I think unfortunately it's a product of society,
Yeah.
not just the porn industry, but I think that doesn't help. I mean,
And I think it's stopped marriages from even happening. You
Yeah, I
know,
think
because
your
it's
gener-
like that's how Satan gets in and stops marriages from even happening because guys are blinded then, blinded by this
perfect
by this
image.
unrealistic
Yes.
expectation of like, well, she has to be beautiful, skinny, big things, whatever.
yeah.
And it's like,
and you know
it's,
what? I'll speak
yeah.
up for these guys.
Yeah.
You girls have the same issues at
Oh,
times,
yeah.
where it's like,
Mhm.
you know, the people that get your attention 1st are typically the ones that are looking like a certain way, you know. Some of my friends and I always tease Emma and Allie, especially, is like, go find the nerd.
Mhm.
That's who you want. You want a nerd that's chasing after Jesus because they're going to be the partners,
Mhm.
you know, and that's, somehow we got to switch to looking at the heart.
Mhm.
The heart.
And I think attraction is important. Don't hear me say
Absolutely.
that because I think there's a pastor out there. I won't say his name. You're going to know exactly what I'm talking about probably as soon as I start talking about this. But he talks about dating and everything. And he kind of the way he talks about attraction is just like, it's kind of important, but it's not important. But
Right.
like, and how like the way he talks about it is more just like, it doesn't matter. Like,
Right.
it doesn't matter if you're attracted to them or not. Just ask them out.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily love that.
Yeah. No,
But I also think that like for me in the past, like I'm not attracted to a guy just by looking at him. Like
Right.
once I start talking to him,
Mhm.
that's when I'm like, hold on a second now. You got some
Wait
nice
a
eyes
minute.
over there. I'm like, hold on, wait a second.
Yes.
Wait a minute.
A minute.
Who are you? It's a meme. Anyway, that was great. That was
Yeah,
really good.
that was great.
Anyway,
That was great.
I'll insert that right here. Probably gonna forget that, but yeah, it's just like, and I know that guys are way more visual than girls.
Yes.
Obviously, girls struggle with this as well because there are girls I know out there who are not giving guys the time of day. You know,
Yeah.
because it's like, oh well, he doesn't have big muscles, and it's like, and like,
Doesn't have the flow.
yeah, and trust me, I have an ick list.
Flow.
Okay, but anyway, but it's like it's very it's sad just to see how I'm just like, man, if you just like I just feel like Satan just blinds men so much, and it's just like guys will just see like, oh yeah, they're a great friend,
Mhm.
and that's it because I'm just not attracted to them, and it's like,
that's a great foundation.
Yeah.
For a relationship
mhm.
is to be friends.
Mhm.
And
It's the best
I
foundation.
mean, we were
friends.
friends.
Jesus, and then
Right. No,
friendship.
I mean,
Yeah.
we were friends, and I wasn't looking for a relationship.
Mhm.
But the more I got to know her, the more I
Mhm.
became attracted to her.
Mhm.
And I think that, you know, I mean, I've told my girls this a lot: be friends with guys.
Mhm.
You know,
A few
and especially
moments
thinking
later.
people try so hard
Mhm.
to find him, and God has somebody out there for you. He's got a plan.
Yeah.
And I sometimes wish he would tell me what the plan was, but
Mhm.
he usually doesn't. So, again, wait,
Mhm.
and being patient and trusting him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to jump into some questions?
Sure.
Okay, let me check
Absolutely.
to make sure it's still recording. Okay. Questions.
Okay. Questions.
Okay. So I asked on my Instagram if people had any questions for you. So
For an old married couple.
for an older
She did use the picture of
marriage is what brings us together today. If you don't know what that reference is from, you're trash. Anyway,
the fact that you know that,
Getting
is,
together.
the fact
Trash.
that you know that, Izzy, you just went up about 5 steps in my book.
it's one of my favorite movies.
It's an awesome movie.
Yeah, it's amazing. Again, if you don't know
I
it,
do
you're
not think
trash.
that word means what you think it means.
I say that all the time.
That's a good
You
one.
use that word a lot. I don't think this
Just a
word means
little
what you
bit.
think it means.
Just
Yeah.
a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so this I'm just gonna go through person. I might not go through all the questions because there's just a lot.
That's
Sorry,
okay.
Brittany.
Go for it.
Yeah.
Okay, John Luke. First off, John Luke. You know
John Luke.
John Luke.
I did that just
John
for
Luke.
Emma.
Emma's
Yeah.
so embarrassed.
She's so good.
If God is the locksmith, what's the key to marriage?
He's the key to marriage. God is the key to marriage.
Mm-hmm.
He designed it.
Mm-hmm.
He tells you how to do it. But he's the key. If the better your relationship with God is, the better our relationship is.
Mm-hmm.
And the better, but that's a two-way street. I mean,
Yeah. Yep.
Bible talks about not being unequally yoked.
Yeah.
And we've advised people that you shouldn't get married if
We
someone's
should
a
not have gotten
believer.
married.
Agreed. Or
But-
even just not like maybe in the same walk of like
Sure.
like in the same
mean,
like I've had not that you're always going to be step in step
Yeah.
line in line or
Right.
whatever, but
Yeah,
I
you
actually
will.
had this conversation with my guy friends recently, more of a debate, I would say. Just kind of throwing scripture at him, but of just like even if like let's say I'm going on a date with a guy. Well, I think it's different guys and girls too. I mean, this is what he was kind of saying. I don't agree with this. But he was saying it's different with guys and girls because the guy has to be the spiritual leader. So it's okay if a girl is less spiritually mature than him. I don't necessarily agree. I see kind of what he was saying, but he was like, oh, I can like make her more spiritually mature. That's my job. And I was like, okay, this is what I get heated. God can do that. Exactly. And I'm like, you do not want to, like, you're going to be giving this woman your children. Like, you are going to be placing your children in this woman's hands. And like, you want to be making sure that whoever is leading your children, like, loves the Lord with all of their heart and is not like relying on you for their spiritual maturity, their spiritualness. Like, you want them to already have a solid relationship with the Lord. Like, yes, there's going to be seasons where it ebbs and flows, like 100%. But like, you don't want to like jump into a relationship with a girl and just seeing like her potential.
Yeah.
That's so
Well,
risky.
I think-
or a guy.
what you're saying, it's almost sort of the opposite with women of like, oh, he's a bad boy, but I can fix him.
Yes. No. It's just so risky.
That's-
Daddy, I love him.
But and yes, as a husband, that is 100% my job.
Mhm.
Dating, it's not
Mm-mm.
really your job.
You need to have a girl who's like secure and a guy. Like,
Absolutely.
Yes, and it's like you said, yes, there can be some differences, but
but it also shouldn't be for a long season. It shouldn't be like, it's like, again, there's ebbs and flows, but it's like if you start dating somebody and it's like they're just in this for too long, it's like, okay, when
Right.
they're going to go up,
I mean, one of our daughters had that.
Mhm.
And so I
Tired
think
guy.
it's very important that,
Your guy.
but it's very important that you realize that in a dating relationship,
That's what he's known as now.
in the,
So sorry.
I'm listening. I'm listening.
yeah, in a dating relationship, that's not the guy's responsibility
Yep.
to be the spiritual leader.
Yep.
Now, you can do it as looking at her as a sister in Christ, and on that level,
Mhm.
but it's not your job.
It's just
to
missionary
lead.
dating at that point.
Yes.
And it's like, yes, there's potential, but like, what if, like, you're not in charge of their heart? The Holy Spirit is. And so, like, what if they never grow? Like, what if you're just like, oh, well, I see them potentially. And it's like, but what if they're never like, and your leadership like doesn't actually, like, you're not in charge of their heart, the Lord is.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just such a fine line to walk. And it's like, men need to be attracted to what girls are, what, like, the here and now of the girls, of like,
Yeah.
this is the girl and how they are now. And the men need to be attracted to that and like that, and not just their potential of like,
Right.
well, I can make them better.
Yeah.
It's like,
I
no.
think there's
Yeah.
that's definitely some warning signs.
Yes.
Mm.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Red flag.
Warning signs.
sorry. I'm just gonna- this is a topic that I get so for being single, very single. I just get so riled up. Anyway, okay, this is also John Luke. As it says in Ephesians 5, this is actually after the sermon yesterday. He texted me and he was like, "Can I ask another question?" I was like, "You got time."
Absolutely.
As it says in Ephesians 5, husbands must love their wives as Christ loves the church, and wives submit to their husbands. As a 23-year-old single man, this is John Luke, not me reading this, who is very clearly an expert on marriage, how can one avoid idolizing their spouse or marriage given this spiritually healthy and scripturally sound dynamic?
Mm,
It's actually a really good question.
yeah.
Better than the first one, probably.
I mean-
the first one was great, John.
First one was good.
Yeah, gosh, I could go a lot of different places, but I think it's how you don't do that is you have the right relationships in
Mhm.
the right order. So your relationship with Christ is number one,
Mhm.
and your relationship with your spouse is secondary. And if you get those mixed up, then you're going to idolize the wrong person.
Mhm.
Thanks for a really lousy God.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, and the longer you're married, the less you can idolize your spouse as you learn that they're a sinner.
The more you're like, ick.
And
Yeah.
they're broken. And
I
they're-
mean, on your honeymoon, you are going to let each other down.
Mhm.
And you're going to have disappointments or
Mhm.
unrealistic expectations or
Mhm.
unmet expectations. And so if you're,
You mean my honeymoon's not going to be perfect?
it's not going to be perfect, Izzy.
Rainbows, unicorns, butterflies.
Sparkles.
Glitter.
and maybe
Yeah.
where you go.
Yeah. Might
They
be
might
I'm just going to
Butterflies
smile the whole
or-
time.
rainbows. But yeah.
Right,
But
yeah.
so, I mean,
Or idolizing your marriage. I mean, I
Yes.
think that's we've seen that with people that they. That's June.
June wants to be
we have a
June.
guest dog.
We have a guest. We have a guest dog.
She licked it.
But I think you can also idolize your marriage.
Yeah.
And I think it's important that you see
Yeah.
your spouse as for who they really are.
Mm-hmm.
And that's part of being transparent and open and honest and saying, here's my stuff. Here's
Yeah.
my junk.
Mm-hmm.
Here it is.
Yeah.
And
Here's all the skeletons in my closet.
Yeah.
You want to come in or do you want to get out? Or
Yeah.
yeah.
100%.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, I'm gonna skip Brit for now. We'll go back to Brit at the end. Just this time. There's a lot. It's a big chunk. Okay, Reagan. You guys know Reagan.
I know Reagan. Such a fun God story of
yes.
Reagan.
Do you agree with when you know you know?
I'm sorry, say that again.
Oh, sorry. Do you agree with when you know you know?
You know, there's so many facets to that. Are you a abiding believer?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have your priorities right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you may know when you know, but more often you don't.
Mm.
It's a leap of faith.
Mhm.
It's like linking arms with another broken person that's going to have the same commitment. Like, the covenant's there, you're aligned on big things
Mhm.
and committed to following Christ and putting him as the foundation of the marriage.
Mm.
Yeah, I think that when you know can be really harmful,
Mm.
especially in today's society of not marrying.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you're waiting to know, like, everything's aligned, you have absolutely no doubt, you're probably not going to get married
Mm-hmm.
because there's always going to be doubt. There is an enemy roaring around and
Mhm.
trying to not make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got to lean into the doubt together and be completely transparent and then make a decision whether or not you're committed to
Mm-hmm.
stick it out and move through or not.
Yeah.
But
I had one of our friends. You'll be able to guess who it was, probably just by me saying it. But we were talking last week, and he said to me, a guy knows within 5 seconds if he's interested in a girl or not, and if he's not interested in that first 5 seconds, he's never going to be interested.
I think that guy, I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
And maybe one day
You
I'll meet him.
haven't met him.
But
I don't think so.
I think that his thought process in that is very worldly. I do
Mhm.
not think that's
And
biblical.
that's exactly what I told him. I
Yeah.
mean, I rebuke most of what comes out of his mouth, but
Yeah, I definitely-
but
he might know in 5
Yes.
seconds whether he wants to pursue anything at that moment.
right.
But I think
And
that's completely false.
And I've had other guys actually say similar things. Like I've
Yeah.
had a lot of guys say similar things to me and just say like, yeah, like guys know pretty quickly.
Putting God in the box.
And it's exactly what I told him.
I think there's a lot of
We're
wrong.
the same person.
We're the same person.
We're the same person.
That's
Hold on.
exactly what I told him. I was like, you are putting God in a box by saying you
Yeah.
know exactly who you're good. Like, you're not letting God do his thing. Like
No.
you're saying that God can't change your
looking-
feelings. You're saying
looking
that
at her.
you're looking at her and saying, I'm not immediately attracted to her at this very moment.
I think that is a very rom-com
Mhm.
ideal.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it's like that's not how it should be. Like,
I mean,
My favorite rom-com.
I mean, look at
Yeah.
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days.
Mhm.
For sure, when I walked in the very first time, my hair's flowing, my
Mhm.
makeup is
You're wearing
beautiful.
your cute little cocktail.
I mean,
Yeah.
and he just knew. No,
Yeah,
it's just
no.
not the way it happens.
My favorite rom-coms are the ones where it's like the guy realizes he's an idiot,
yeah.
and then he's like, "Ah, shoot, this girl's been right in front of me this whole
Yeah.
time, but I've been chasing after these."
I
other
mean,
girls."
I think the other thing,
I mean,
this might be a hot take, and I'm not
Ooh, hot take!
I'll take
Hot take alert!
I'm not a big fan of this bachelorette thing.
Oh, that's not a hot take at all for us at all. No,
But it's the same idea. Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to meet somebody, and in
Mhm.
5 seconds, I'm going to know whether or
Mhm.
not I'm going to propose to this person at the end of the.
mm-hmm.
You don't.
episode.
Yeah,
You don't
Pretty
even.
much.
How in 5 seconds does a guy or a girl in this matter even know what they believe about Jesus?
yeah,
Like,
Mhm.
how do you know that in 5 seconds?
Yeah.
I mean, isn't
Yep.
that the most important thing about us?
Mhm.
Who do we say God is?
Mhm.
Like, unless you can have that conversation with someone in 5 seconds, I don't think you can
Mhm.
know if that person's the
Yeah, I
one.
think it's important to say it's not a car. I mean,
I'm
no,
not?
I don't like that car. Okay, I mean,
I don't like the way it looks.
you know, it's
That's me. That's us girls.
Does it have the pearl finish?
Yeah, yeah.
How is its
if it
turning
does, then-
radius?
If it
Yes.
does, then you know.
If it has the pearl finish, then
Yeah.
But
Is it pretty?
I mean, there's the love at
know.
first sight.
Mhm.
There's all, and I get that, and I hear that, but it's
And
like
Sometimes that's
but
someone's
this
story.
is the
Mhm.
most.
But that would be putting God in a box if you're like, that's everybody's story.
Sure.
Or putting God in a box if you're like, well, that's not your story.
But
Yeah.
this is one of the most important decisions after deciding to trust Jesus that you're going to make is
Mhm.
who you're going to
Mm-hmm.
Mary.
marry
Mhm.
and spend the rest of your life with.
Mhm.
And so that there's needs to be some thought and some consideration and some
Mhm.
prayer and guidance sought.
Prayer,
and-
community.
yeah,
fasting, all this stuff.
100%
Yeah.
of
It
you
shouldn't
know,
be an easy decision.
with no.
It should not just be a quick,
Well, let's
like-
get married.
Yep,
Okay,
nope.
great. Off we go.
same with,
And we
yeah.
happily ride off into the sunset.
hmm I am very much
Not a
so
rom-com.
like a date and community kind of person of
Yeah, for
like
sure.
date with, not within your community necessarily. I mean, yeah, if within your community, great.
Yeah.
But like if you're dating someone, bring your community into everything. Yeah, processor reporter. And like, I think when I was dating my ex, like we pushed away everybody that would say anything about us, that would say anything that we didn't want to hear. We were like, nope, we can do it all on our own. And we couldn't. And we weren't super strong in our faiths, and it was a mess. It was chaotic. It was terrible. And like, now I am such a big advocate of like, bring everybody into everything, and it's like, because why are you hiding anything? And it's
Right.
like, you don't have to necessarily like, I'm a very open person in general. And I understand that not everybody is as open as me, but like, and I'm sure that'll probably be a point of contention or whatever, tension or whatever in my future relationship, because I'm very open and I'm sometimes too open. But like, I'm just very much so like, why are you hiding things? Like, why not bring your community into it? If you're having a fight, why not talk to people about it and be like, hey, like, what do we do here? Like, we need help. We can't do this alone. Like,
When your brain goes to, or your heart, whatever you're leading with at the moment, goes to, we need to hide this,
Mm-hmm.
you need to be asking, what sin are you hiding?
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're not, as believers, processing and doing things in
Mhm.
community,
Mm-hmm.
then we're hiding and we're isolating. And there is such big warnings. And
Mhm.
what's that? What are you doing?
Mhm.
Do you have the
Yeah.
Holy Spirit? It's more of a
Yeah.
conviction.
Yeah.
And if you have all these people that you trust
Mm-hmm.
in your life saying no, you should probably
Yeah.
listen to them.
Yeah.
Or if you have opposite,
Yeah.
where all the people in your life are saying, yeah, you need to do this. Like,
Yeah.
yes, but you're like,
Do not let her go. Let
Yes.
him
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
yeah, like,
Yes.
don't let them go. Like, you need
Don't
to
put a ring on it.
literally. It's like, and I've heard so many stories too of like where it literally took. I mean, I went to a wedding a couple weeks ago, and that was literally it. But basically, is like that's how they got together, because they were like really close friends, and some of their mutual friends were like, "What are you doing? Like, go
Yeah.
date her."
Yeah.
Like, y'all are such good friends.
Yeah.
Why are you not dating? Like,
Yeah.
get rid of those expectations, those unrealistic expectations.
Yeah.
Toss those out the window. And like, he woke up and realized, oh my gosh, she's right in front of me, and they got married.
Especially because that, we've talked a lot tonight about the hard part of marriage,
Mhm.
but the good part of marriage
Mhm.
is so much sweeter.
Mhm.
And to have a safe place,
Mm-hmm.
to have, you know, and you hear in the movie, somebody that I can tell my
Mm-hmm.
whatever about.
Mhm.
But to have somebody who you know is in your corner,
Mm-hmm.
who you know is going to point you back to Christ,
Yep.
who's going to forgive you, who's going to love you, who, if you're doing it right and working hard after it, is going to model Christ to
Yep.
you and Christ's love, which,
Mhm.
you know, I think it's very easy that we can kind of gloss over how much he loves us.
Mhm.
And that, you know, that you want to get that right.
Mm-hmm.
But when you find it, hold on,
Yeah.
Yeah.
do not let go.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, just to caution you guys out, is like making sure you have the right community speaking in is
Mhm.
really, really important. And if you're giving advice to a dating couple or as a community trying to help your brother or sister try to like work through the dating part, is like, are you leaning into conflict? Just because there's conflict doesn't mean that it's bad and
Mhm.
y'all need to break up
Yeah.
or run away.
Conflict,
Like,
there could be healthy conflict. You
Listen,
should be fighting. There should not be
you're
no
going
conflict
to
at
have
all.
conflict in
Yeah.
your marriage all
Mhm.
the time.
If there's no conflict, that's a red flag.
That's a big red
Yeah,
flag.
yeah.
And you know what? That is exactly what I would have said about Jeff and I
Mm.
through dating is we got along so well. We never had conflict. You know what? Had I known what was going on behind the
Mhm.
scenes, we would have had tons of conflict.
Yeah.
So that just to
Yeah.
throw that in there.
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
This is so interesting because, like, obviously, I've watched you guys like mentor and lead couples my whole walk with Christ, but I've never like asked questions or like asked for your insight because I haven't dated anybody.
Yet.
She's single.
Single. And I have two really great models of marriage. So if we have conflicts, we know who we can talk to. But it's just like,
Conflict resolution.
it's just
conflict
so
field
like
guides coming out.
interesting now, like being an adult and like hearing you guys give this advice like to me.
Yeah.
But like I'm not just sitting here like twiddling my thumbs. I'm like soaking it all in, and I'm like, oh, and add that to the memory bank.
Yeah.
Me too. God, I met y'all.
I think that's we have mentors. I mean, we're the older married couple, and we have mentor couples that
Yeah.
we have mentor couples that we go to and have gone to,
Mhm.
and we
And
have
we have
community
community.
that we
Yes.
widen the circle and
Mhm.
talk with, because you know so many times community can like see right through all the junk and go
Mhm.
Shout out to McDougal.
shout out to community of, and
helping
they'll
us on Wednesday.
It takes
And
a
they'll-
village.
yeah, and they'll be like, well, this guys, look this, and you're like, oh
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
thanks for that. But
Yeah.
you know, I think that opportunity to not only community but mentors, and having that, seeking them out, and
Mhm.
you know that you can trust they'll point you back to Christ.
And Emma,
Mhm.
I will always give you advice.
Mhm.
But it is cool to like, I mean, just how the Lord has worked on you and your heart and
Hold
your faith. Yeah, you might as well just
Servant hearted. Look at that.
Hold on.
It's real sweet to be in a spot, you know, in our relationship where it's like it's more meaningful now.
Mhm.
Like it means something. And hopefully, I mean, goodness knows you've seen us make a million mistakes and do things wrong, but also that we're not saying something that we're not trying to live out in our own marriage, like
Mhm.
really trying to model it. And
Okay.
I mean, and I think that's why it's always been important to let the girls in on,
Mhm.
I mean, you might not have known that we're going through a rough patch until tonight, but
I was gonna say I did not know that until just now.
she's busy with all of you guys.
I
She's
just
not
told
around
her.
a lot that much anymore. So,
Yeah.
but it's not a secret.
Yeah.
Like we don't.
It shouldn't be.
No,
Yeah.
we don't do this
Yeah.
in isolation.
When I'm going through a hard thing and I'm single, like when I'm going through a hard thing, I bring community into
Yeah.
it. And like if I'm dating somebody or if I'm married to someone, heck yeah, I'm bringing community into it. I'm gonna be like, y'all, like,
And I get it that,
You know.
I mean, I think Emma and I'll speak for myself. Emma and I have a really unique relationship, and that's not always the case
mhm.
for people, but you can find
Mhm.
other married couples that you can
Mhm.
model and talk to and ask
Yeah.
questions to.
Yeah.
So,
That kind of jumps into our next question. My friend Natalie said, "How did you / do you use friends for accountability without losing trust with your partner?"
I mean, I think that's a great question, but
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I can speak a little bit more into like, you know, if you're married to someone that has a porn addiction, I don't want to know every time he has a lustful thought or has a temptation to go look at something.
You don't need to know that.
I don't need to know those details. And I mean, I can go into that on the girl side, because when everything first came out, I asked a lot of questions and I have a lot of details that, I mean, that was 10 years ago and I still can't get out of my head sometimes. And so it is important for him to have men that he can go confess those to and seek accountability in that way, because I can't do that for him. And the same, I mean,
It's be hurting you more. And
Yeah.
it's like bringing that back up. And it's like, why? Yeah. It's not helpful.
it's not helpful.
Yeah.
It's not helpful, and it's not God's best for us. So
Your wife shouldn't be your
Your
accountability
accountability
partner,
partner.
especially for something like that.
Amen.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good.
Period.
So
Yeah.
I think having friends and community is extremely important. And I think one of the things we would say is, hey, if there's a point at which, let's just say, for instance, we'll run with that example. If I was like really questioning like something, then I can go to these men because I know who these men are in his life, and I can ask them questions, and they might come around me and be like, you know what, Julie, I don't think those details are helpful, but I will tell you this, that, and the other. So it's not like it's a secret in that I can never know, if that makes sense. Like it's not hidden, but I trust these men. The Lord put these men in our life for a reason, and I trust them to make wise, discerning decisions about what I need to know and I don't want to know.
So that actually is that's kind of, I guess, a question that I have. Cause like I said before, like I'm the girl that all the guys come to me for girl advice, and I love it. And I think that that's something I've like kind of been struggling with somewhat recently, of just like, am I too close with some of the guys? Am I like, is this why I'm single? Like, is this like, you know, like, do guys not want this? But like in my mind, like I want like a relationship where it's like, I'm not best friends with all of his best friends, but like where I'm like so comfortable with like all of his friends that like, if I need to, go to them and just be like, hey, like, what is he thinking? Like, he's not opening up to me. Like, y'all got to get, like, I can go to them and talk to them, not to like trash on him or whatever, you know, but just to be like, hey, like, you know these things about him, like, you know, he's not opening up, whatever. Can you talk to him about this? Or like, and not to break trust, but just to like, you know,
the circle though, is it?
Yeah,
It's like, you know, I mean,
but do you think that's okay? Do you think it's healthy? I guess my question is, do you think it's healthy for a girl to be friends with her boyfriend's husband's friends, not like best friends, but like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think I know enough about you that I would say I think it's probably something to start thinking more about when you start a dating relationship.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think there is some barriers that maybe
boundaries for sure.
Yeah. But I also think that in a way you're probably a blessing to these guys that they can come talk to you, and that might not.
One of my friends did tell me that the other day.
Yeah, I mean, what a gift, and maybe vice versa, that you have these guys that you can ask questions to. Like having relationships, non-sexual, non-intimate friend relationships with the opposite sex, gender, whatever, is like important. I mean, Jesus didn't just have men around him.
Yeah.
And you sharpen one another in different ways. And so I think that that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say absolutely being friends, like even me knowing her friends and being able to go, hey, she's really struggling with this right now. Can you guys, I don't know if she's told you.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
And
because you're one, so you can't.
And having that relationship with each other. I mean, like you said, boundaries. I mean, there's appropriate boundaries, and they're great.
It's not like you're going to go get coffee with one of her friends one-on-one.
Well, but I might. But, but it's also the thing of like,
but it's about her board. Or something like that. Yeah.
I mean, it'd be above board, and like, I mean, we have a rule where I think it's family that I will text one-on-one of the opposite sex.
Okay.
Other than that, somebody else is going to be in that text.
Right.
And that's just
good rule.
And that is not because there isn't a trust. That is because that is the safest thing to keep everything safe. So like if I needed to reach out with one of his guys, I'm not going to just reach out to him. I'm going to include his wife or one of those things. So, I mean, it's kind of the same thing. So
And I think it's harder, like me being single, most of my guy friends being single. It's like, well, there's no other like girls. Like, yeah, if they were dating somebody, it's like I'd want to make sure they know, you know. And like even my friend who just got married a couple weeks ago, it's like I was friends with him before I was friends with her, and I like once, and I met her very closely to when I met him, but like the dog snoring. That's
Our
really
dog
funny.
is snoring.
But like like me and him had a separate relationship, I would say, than like me and her, because like we were kind of friends and like brother and sister first. But like I like, especially once they got like way more serious, it's like I would still text him separately sometimes, but it wouldn't like usually
Nothing that she couldn't see.
yeah, exactly. And not that anything before that was anything, but like it was just always stuff, and it was just like me and Kurt, like if he dropped a book one time and I was like, hey, great job on the book, you know, like random stuff like that, you know. And it's like she doesn't have to be included in this, but like and even now it's like I really only go to her about things, because I'm like, oh, can you just tell him this, like can you just tell Paul this, like I know you guys are telling everything to, like even I got coffee with him one time because he was in town, and like she lived far away, and so he was in town. We got coffee, and he was like, okay, she caught me up on everything, like I already know everything, let's talk about it. I was like, perfect, you know, like, and so just you know, that kind of thing.
You're being wise with the balance.
And
I try to be,
I think like you'd said earlier, is like if we're hiding it,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's like, here's my phone, look at my phone. I don't have anything.
There shouldn't be anything to hide.
Right.
Yeah.
And so being above board of, you know, hey, I talked to so and so today, or hey, I'm going to reach out to so and so for this. Oh, okay, sure, no problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a good idea to be friends with your person's friends, not only to help them, but to help your spouse. If you can go to them and go, hey, I think they're really struggling with this right now.
When you're dating, I think it's wise to know who they're seeking counsel from.
100%. It's like you're a product of your 5 closest friends.
Yeah, who's their tribe?
Yeah.
Who are they
Who's your-
running?
who's
Who are
their
they
tribe?
hanging out
Right.
with? I mean,
100%.
if they're hanging out with a biker gang, it's like, oh, okay, maybe not.
What's wrong with biker? Anyway.
And I think too, just even like the importance of kind of what we were saying earlier of just like your friends will be able to see your blind spots and everything too, even in dating or before dating or whatever. It's like your friends can just point things out and be like, yeah, what are you doing? Go chase her down. Or like, what are you doing? Why aren't you giving him a chance? Or whatever, you know? And it's like,
Or run.
What are you doing? You need to run.
You need to run the other way.
or
very
that
fast.
too. Yes. But it's just like, if you know his friends or he knows your friends or whatever, like it's so much more, like that means so much more than like if, you know, you're considering dating somebody and it's like, well, I don't really like his friends or her friends don't really know me at all. So it's like, it's not gonna, like, they're not going to push them to date you then. You know what I mean? It's like, but if they know you, they know your character. It's like, well, of course they're going to be like, why aren't you dating that person? Like, that person's amazing. You need to date them, you know?
Right.
So anyway. Okay, next question. Kind of similar to if you know, you know, but my friend Daisy asked, how did you know that they were the one?
I mean, I
I'll
don't.
let you hold it for this one. I want to hear this. I want to hear the answer.
I think I'm a bad. My story is not something you should mimic.
Fair.
So, because I definitely enjoyed Jeff and I's relationship and friendship and all of these things, and we had so much fun together. But you have to remember that we did not have the foundation of Christ at the center of the relationship. So I think we're not a great thing. And he was a great escape. Like, I got to escape a really hard situation in a city that had lots of bad memories for me and was somewhat isolated from my own family at the time. So unfortunately, Daisy, I'm not a great person to
That's okay.
say.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I knew in my heart, but my heart was not being led from a godly perspective.
And kind of what you said earlier too, of like, there's always gonna be doubts.
Yeah.
Like, you're probably never gonna be fully like, this is the one. And I think also, I will say though, like, I do think the Lord speaks, and
Yeah,
like the Lord will 100% show you, like, and make it. I think the Lord really, if He wants two people together, they're going to be together.
Yeah.
And He's going to make it abundantly clear to both of them. Like,
Yeah.
what the Lord puts together, let no one separate, you know? And like, that's what the Bible says somewhere in the Bible. I forget where, but like,
and the Lord has obviously redeemed our marriage.
Mhm,
So
100%,
I mean, He's
yeah.
been at work the whole time.
mhm,
We just weren't necessarily
Yeah.
listening or paying attention at periods.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that he talks to you even when you're far from it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even if you're not
If you're
paying
listening.
attention,
Mhm.
he still will speak to you and
mhm,
make things happen. And I think, you know, for me, it just the thought of not being with her,
hmm
I didn't like.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't think of it that way. And I'd never had that thought in the previous relationship that I was in.
Of just like losing her. You were
Yeah.
like, I don't want to lose her.
Right.
Yeah.
And so,
Like even just her friendship. You were just like, I don't
Yeah.
want to lose her friendship.
yeah.
That you were just like,
absolutely.
well, if I don't want to lose her friendship, then that means I
Gotta-
probably don't want to
Gotta
lose
put
her.
a ring on it.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. Okay, my friend Noah asks, how do you leave in-laws to become married as one without hurting their feelings? Okay.
And ooh.
Yeah, in-laws, gosh.
Oh.
Can I answer this one?
In-laws.
Do they have stories about in-laws?
Yeah.
We do.
We could
We do have- This is this is a
Okay,
whole
you got
podcast.
2 minutes.
This is a whole podcast.
just 2 minutes.
Uh,
actually going to time you for this one. Go.
okay, go. I think first you got to go back to Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Leave your mother and father
Mhm.
and become one flesh.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to understand that that is the relationship now. Your relationship with your parents is fundamentally changed at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the basis. You have to understand that.
Mm-hmm.
That now my wife should come to me 1st,
Mhm.
not her father, not her mother. I should come to her, not my mom, not my father.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
You can involve them in things,
Absolutely.
but like
Yes,
you
but-
probably should, depending on your
but
relationship
first,
with them.
and I
But
think it's
Mhm.
helpful if the in-laws do that also. Of have you talked to your husband?
mm-hmm.
Have you talked to your wife about
Mhm.
this before you come talk to me?
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it get in the middle of marriages, and it's very difficult
Yeah.
when the one spouse has a foot left in the family or this or that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's the practical things. Whose house are you going to be at Christmas this
1
year?
minute left.
Oh, sorry.
You know, who equal time. Now you have grandkids, and everybody
Mhm.
wants equal time. And so I think the most important part is the communication between the couple.
Yep.
The talking about it.
Just putting up boundaries.
Boundaries
Lots
boundaries
of
with family is
expectation.
hard.
Mhm.
Lots of expectations. Our girls, every time they hear the word expectations, they roll their eyes because we talk a lot about it.
Welcome.
Yeah, they
Yeah.
do welcome it now. I would just say, yeah, in my 30-second,
You can take it.
it's all about,
You got all the time you want.
Yeah, you talk.
mm-hmm.
and I've been drinking
Look.
HEB Topo Chico, so it
Yeah.
makes me have burps.
Mhm.
Just being real, guys.
She's being real.
I know.
This is the realest podcast we've had. Man, talking about porn sex.
that embarrassed
My
of it.
goodness. Bert.
It's, I would say it is about conversations with your soon-to-be spouse, conversations with your parents, your soon-to-be spouse's parents, and having honest expectation
Mhm.
conversations are the key.
That's good. Yeah. Okay, we're moving on to Brittany. I'm just gonna go through a couple of her questions. I'm not gonna go over all of them. But
So she's the question person, right?
Yes, I
Yes.
love this.
so we'll
Bring it on,
try to do
Brittany.
like speed, just
Ooh,
Okay.
speed round.
speed round.
Speed round.
You can't talk. Go.
What are the best ways to prepare for marriage while you're single?
Pray.
Mm-hmm.
Chase Jesus.
Chase Jesus. Okay.
I mean, your relationship with Jesus is your most important relationship,
Mhm.
even when you're married. So
Mhm.
you've got to work on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got to understand who you are as a person
Mm-hmm.
and be honest with what are your sin struggles? What are your
Mhm.
ditches? That's the most important thing.
Mm-hmm.
Speed.
Okay.
We're speed questions.
Pros/cons.
Brittany, you and I can
of,
talk more later.
Yes. Pros/cons of dating your friends. Like if y'all have a friend group.
I mean, the cons obviously is if you guys don't handle the relationship well, the dynamic in the friendship is going to change.
Mm-hmm.
There is a
In the
point.
friend group.
Yeah, if you don't date well, you won't friend well,
Mhm.
right? So if you have a friend,
on a shirt.
If you don't date well, you won't
don't
friend well.
but that's
Boom.
so
Put it on a
true.
mug.
Like check
T-shirt.
For real, yeah.
Yeah.
check your heart, check your
Mhm.
heart, guys. Like, why are you dating in the first place? And then you should have conversations about what happens if something goes poorly
Mhm.
before you agree to start dating.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, talk about the enemy getting in and mixing. I mean, y'all's friend group, what I know, like, y'all are on fire and the Lord is working. So,
Yeah.
of course, he would want to break that up.
Mhm.
I mean, that's a target on your back.
Mhm.
So you need to friend well and you need to date well and you need to have very good, honest conversations and then be the model of what it looks like to break up and still have great friendships.
Mhm.
Because at the end of the day, that's your testimony.
And I think
The world is watching.
and just to add on to that too, like same thing as I was talking about earlier of like, then you can bring your friends in to be like, should we date? Like ask your friends
Absolutely.
first. Be like, should this happen? Like
Yeah.
before it, like don't just talk to each other about it, but also talk
No.
to your friend group about it and be like, should this happen? Like,
Yeah.
do you think this is wise?
And
do you
hey,
guys ship it? You know,
What do you see that could be a problem?
exactly. Yeah. Okay. Thoughts on friends setting each other up with other friends. So I guess same thing, kind of same context of like, I guess friend group, like let's say it's a friend group and it's like, oh, okay, some of the boys or whatever, are like, hey guys, like, you know,
I'll be quick.
he can have it.
I'll be quick. I think if you trust your friends, it's a great idea.
Mhm.
I mean, hopefully they have your best interests at heart also.
Mhm.
And maybe it's somebody that they already know and have a relationship with, and they're like, oh my gosh, this is the person for so-and-so.
Mhm.
So if you have great friends, I think it's a good idea. If not great friends, maybe not.
Yeah, and I also would just caution that whoever is this person setting up to check their motives and hearts and
Yeah.
really their expectations,
Mhm.
because it can be derailed by just completely unrealistic expectations. Like,
Mhm.
I'm going to set, Izzy and
Um,
Sam. Is there a Sam in the group?
Not really.
A Bob?
Kind of.
I'm trying to think of a name.
He's not in the
that-
group anymore.
Anyway,
But there is a Sam. He's not in the group chat anymore though. But it's okay. You can say
but
Sam.
just a random
Yeah.
guy, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're going to hit it off. It's going to be love at first sight, and they're going to, get married in 3 months. Okay, well, that's probably not the person
I
that
hope
you
not.
should be going out with.
I would not let Izzy get married in 3 months.
I would hope you would.
CG,
I would hope not.
email me up. I'll be like, please.
Yeah,
gotta circle.
please
We gotta have-
slap me.
We gotta
Take
rally.
me
Yeah.
to a mental institution or something. Take me out of the state. My goodness. Anyway.
Yeah, but I mean, the pro is that friend obviously loves both of those people
Mhm.
well and feels like, they would be a great match.
Mhm.
I mean, that's fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, pros and cons.
Um,
Jasmine to the pod, everybody.
We moved the furniture and our dog's confused.
yeah. How has your relationship with one another strengthened your relationship with the Lord?
Well, I mean, mine is, I think y'all have kind of heard it in my story, but relying on the Lord for my strength and to teach me how sin is in his eyes and forgiveness. I mean, obviously, not that I would have asked for what happened with
Mhm.
Jeff and I, but I would not have the relationship that I do without it either.
Yeah.
So
I think her
I'll hold it.
her modeling
Control freak.
I mean, her modeling God's
Just
love for
kidding.
me. That in spite of myself,
Mm-hmm.
in spite of the things that I've done, she still loves me.
That's just it. It just shows Jesus. That's Jesus. That's literally
Yeah.
the gospel. Literally
Yeah.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean,
people ask me like, oh, what's one of the biggest ways that you see like the gospel lived out, or like Jesus? It's y'all, and like the way that your marriage was redeemed.
just any relationships where it's just like, or it's just like there's hurt,
Yeah.
and both parties or what party that's hurt is just like, I'm not running, like I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
like I'm staying
This
right
sucks.
here.
I really
Unless
don't
it's
like
like-
you right now, but
There's certain situations where you should run, but like it's just like those situations where it's just like it's just living out the gospel, living out the love of Jesus, of just like, I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of me. Like
Yeah.
I'm just like Jesus.
We-
Not yeah, but
yeah, I mean, we made a commitment.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. What advice would you give to yourselves when you first started dating? If you could go back and give yourselves advice.
I mean, I would say I need to get grounded and have a strong relationship with Christ before I
Mhm.
get married.
Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say?
Confess.
Mm. Be good.
Oh,
I
look
mean,
at Jesus.
confess, seek wisdom and seek guidance.
Mm.
You can't do it by yourself. You're not strong enough. You're not
Mhm.
smart enough. Surround yourself with godly people
Mm.
who will point you back to Christ, and work on your relationship with Jesus first and foremost and always.
Yeah.
And out of that, then you can do things.
Good. Well, do you guys have any final closing thoughts?
That really is. That's the last question.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think
okay.
there's so much in marriage,
I
And
wasn't prepared for the Philly, but this is funny.
and that's all I have to say. No, I think marriage is the most important human relationship you'll ever have.
Mm.
And I think if you can think of it in that terms and give it the gravity that it deserves and the importance, and it's not buying a car, it's not picking out a place to go on vacation. It's one of the most important decisions you'll ever make in your life.
Mm.
And if you treat it that way and give it your full devotion and put people and get advice and mentorship and all that, you're starting out way ahead of 80% of the people in the world.
Yep.
And the more you can talk about it, the better off you're going to be. The more you can bring things into the light, the more that you can have discussions and ask questions, the better off you're going to be.
Good. Anything you want to add? That's it?
I mean, I could talk about marriage forever
Absolutely.
and dating and all that stuff. So I would just encourage you guys to make sure that dating isn't an idol.
Mm.
Getting married isn't an idol.
Mhm.
I don't think that's a healthy place to start a relationship. So work on that, and then, you know, surround yourself with good people that are going to encourage you and spur you on, and be the blind spots for you guys.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Join me next week. My friend Sean's on the podcast. He talks about his experience at Beach Reach for the second time and just how the Lord really used him and how he felt like the Lord couldn't use him because of his heart and just because of himself and his own sin, but how the Lord shows that he really qualifies the called, not calls the qualified. So it's a great episode, but until then, have a great week.